international links. Tonight, Scottish Eye looks behind the graffiti at the growth of right-wing groups in Scotland and reveals the right connections. The 1980s were unprofitable years for the extreme right in Britain, especially in Scotland with its strong left-wing traditions. But now, as we enter the 90s, one small group is on the move again. The British National Party is coming out of the shadows and onto the streets of Scotland.
I can say the level of support in Scotland is changing dramatically now, basically both numerically and geographically. Up until the last few years, I would say, the British National Party could basically solely be called a Glasgow-based British National Party. But in the last year or so, the British National Party have reached out to almost every part of Scotland. We've got branches in Edinburgh, Dundee, Inverness, Aberdeen. We've even got plans now to have one in the Western Isles.
The kind of level of support that we get from people surprises me, and it surprises most of our members. And I hope it shocks the political establishment of the left and of the reactionary right in Britain.
Last August, their newspaper printed a map confirming the growth of active cells around Scotland. They are shy of revealing exact membership numbers, but we can report that nearly 100 attended a rally in Edinburgh in December, and there are now 2 branches in Glasgow. In Montrose in January, the Dundee branch organised a street demonstration. They claim their growth in the northeast has been rapid.
In Dundee, we have approximately 18 members, signed-up members. The branch was formed in October 1989, and these inquiries had obviously been received in the past by our London head office, and we've done the follow-up and managed to recruit these people.
I tell mothers with the British National Party,
Stop
put the British people first.
With the British National Party.
We are suffering material deprivation. We want to see our living standards increased, and the other political parties are failing us. They are definitely failing us, blue-collar, working-class people from the back streets.
I believe there's a realisation that, especially when you consider that the working class in Scotland have been continually laying their support at the feet of the Labour Party and have received absolutely nothing in return, the working class people in Scotland are going to start looking for an alternative. I believe they already have.
So why have some Scots in the last months turned to the British National Party? Jim Sillars is MP for Govan. His central Glasgow constituency is a target of BNP activity.
I think wherever you have very heavy unemployment, you have people, quite naturally, disaffected by the system, feeling of desperation and hopelessness comes in. And what the BNP are adept at doing is saying, we'll produce a scapegoat for you. Principally from their point of view, if the scapegoat is a different colour of skin and comes from an entirely different culture, then it's an even better scapegoat from their point of view. And it's understandable that people in locality under pressure will look for a scapegoat that they can see, touch and feel, rather than one which is an abstraction like the city or the government. And I think the BNP are aware of that and try to play in it.
In the real world, droves of Afro-Asians and Jews would love to come into Britain to shelter under the benign British culture. If their culture is the equal of our culture, how come they don't build a similar civilization like we have here in Britain?
In the 90s, the BNP no longer relies on simple slogans or graffiti to take its message to the streets. It has recently become skilled in modern methods of propaganda. Nevertheless, much of its ideology remains based around simple, emotional issues. General ignorance surrounding the AIDS scare, for example, has led to anti-homosexual feelings which the BNP shares and seeks to exploit. Similarly, its stand on capital punishment is guaranteed to strike a chord with people who fear what they see as a rise in violent crime.
You hear so often about defective creatures murdering children. been put away by some easy liberal for a few years, only to be re-released and commit the same crime on another child. And people say hanging isn't a deterrent. Well, I think it is, because if these people had been hanged straight away, the other child would have survived. That's just one example.
These views have today been given renewed expression through the emergence of a new kind of leader, college-educated and committed right-wing activists like Eric Brand.
All the leading activists have a say in the party policy, but ultimately the final decision of what goes into our manifesto rests with our leader, John Tyndall, and all our membership are happy with that, and if they aren't happy with that, then they can leave.
Tyndall has a long history of involvement with extreme right-wing groups. In the 70s, he was one of the leaders of the National Front, but broke away in 1979. In 1982, he formed the British National Party. Today, the BNP claims Scotland as its biggest growth area.
Well, you raise the level of activity where we find that there's support. I mean, we're a UK-wide party, and where we see support, we go there. And we found that there's a lot of interest in Scotland in recent times, and we become more active here.
What is it about the current political climate in Scotland that has encouraged you to spend time, money and effort in recruiting here?
Well, simply, as I say, the fact that there's a lot of support and latent support. I think the economic situation is important, the level of unemployment in Scotland. Also, the Scots are seeing the bad effect of immigration in the inner cities of England and are fearful that it'll come to here.
There is one man who can reveal the inside story of British fascism. In 1979, the extreme right was infiltrated. For 5 years, top-level information was leaked to anti-fascist groups. His cover was so effective that he rose to become John Tyndall's trusted lieutenant and marched side by side with him in the BNP. Since breaking cover in 1984, several attempts have been made on Rahill's life.
They're enjoying a great deal of success at the moment. There's been, for almost a decade now, a split in the ranks of British fascism. This is what caused their downfall in the early 1980s. Splits and splits and more splits. We've had a battle for the soul, if you like, of British fascism over the past decade. But John Tyndall is a very resilient man, and John Tyndall has won that battle.
To continue to win that battle, Tyndall and the BNP have launched a drive for new recruits to the cause. A prime target is young white working-class men. They look for them around Scotland's football grounds.
Cut third world aid, not pension and child benefit. British National is 25 pence.
I first started buying papers at Ibrox.
British National is 25 pence.
Then I went along to a rally and I listened to what it was says, and like most of it I agreed with. Then I went along to a branch meeting, and that's when I joined the British National Party.
The propaganda of movements like the BNP is very seductive indeed. You go up to some kid on a football terrace who's got no job, or perhaps the government have been kind enough to put him on some scheme where he learns to cut grass or something like that for 2 years. The BNP offer him instant solutions. You see, a typical approach is, any of your family ever been in the army, mate? To which the youngster is likely to reply, yes, my father and my grandfather. Yes, and he fought for this country, for you. And the government have given it away to a load of bloody niggers. Asians, Wogs, Chinese, God knows what. Your father fought for it for you. It's been stolen from you by traitors. Have you got the bottle? Have you got the guts to fight for it back? It's your country. Now, you see, an approach like that has everything that a boy in that position needs. It excuses him for his failure. It blames someone else, an easily identifiable enemy. And at the same time, it challenges his manliness,
his own macho image of himself, his own self-esteem, and of course, if he's not a very bright boy, he's likely to fall for it. Many do.
But the BNP recruitment target is wider than working-class youth.
The reason I joined is I have a young family. I'm concerned about their future in their own country. I see mass immigration, I see unemployment, and I look to 10, 15 years in the future. And like there are other women in the BNP who joined for the same reason.
No, we don't aim specifically at the working class communities, we aim at all classes, but I think that the middle classes have more to lose. They're in sensitive jobs. They can more easily lose their jobs if they're associated with a radical movement such as ours. So our middle class support tends to be below the surface, whilst our working class support is seen much more in the open.
More disturbing is the BNP tactic of canvassing for members among school children.
Well, a lot of them would like to get involved with it, but like they say, oh, you can't. There's no that comes in and say, oh, he's that and that. It's just a lot of them would like to become involved with it because he likes his school, the areas we come from.
What would you say to people who said you were too young to be involved in politics?
Suppose you could, but like, if you start off young, you know more about it. But I say round about 15 upwards, that's when you start getting a mind of your own. So you be what you want to be. That's what I want to be.
A lot of teachers, not all of them, but a large majority of teachers have left-wing tendencies, and obviously they're going to pass this on to the students and with any other corrupt ideas they may have. I think it's necessary for the British National Party to establish itself at the school gates and offer the children an alternative.
How does the BNP manifest itself in your constituency?
By graffiti and by canvassing with the most appalling leaflets outside of schools. And these are the main manifestations of them. Not the highest public political profile that one could imagine, because basically they don't have roots in our society. I regard them very much as opportunistic visitors to Govan and other parts of Glasgow.
But visits from the BNP often meet with strong opposition. Party members on their way to a rally in Edinburgh in December were met by an angry crowd 200 strong. Many people are deeply concerned that public expression of BNP policies will lead to street violence and increased racial tension.
We see ourselves on a sort of working under a war footing, i.e. where members are constantly under threat of physical attack.
We want to persuade people by reasoned argument, by showing them that we're right and that our ideas are right. But what happens is that people do try to attack our meetings, attack our activities, and sometimes attack our members individually by violent means. And our philosophy then is that we defend ourselves strongly. That's all.
Whilst the Scottish BNP members have no criminal background, the longer established English membership certainly does. At various times, BNP members have been convicted of possession of offensive weapons, criminal damage, arson, violent behaviour, and construction of nail bombs.
Many, many convictions under race relations laws, but this they don't regard. They choose to obey the laws that they want to obey, and they don't regard that as a crime. Convictions for violence abound amongst the BNP.
Part of Tyndall's strategy for promoting the ideology of the extreme right is to attempt to forge links with other groups at home and abroad. For nearly 20 years, the far right has wooed the Ulster Protestant community. John Tyndall himself has marched beside prominent loyalists. The BNP today attempt to recruit from Scotland's militant Protestants and are open in their support for Ulster loyalist paramilitaries.
We are passionately committed to the maintenance of the British status in Northern Ireland. And so we certainly do recruit in Scotland among people of that persuasion.
The British National Party is a peaceful and law-abiding organisation. The British National Party does not support political terrorism, shooting people in the back, blowing people up. But in the case of Ulster, the British National Party recognises that the people in the north of Ireland are being attacked by terrorist organisations like the IRA, the INLA, the IPLO, the Catholic Reaction Force, and the British National Party recognises that the British government is not giving the people in the north of Ireland the protection that they need. And so, in such a case, we believe that the Irish people in the north of Ireland have the right to protect themselves. We believe that.
Other links are also being forged further afield. The BNP are in regular contact with some of the most extreme and reactionary groups in Europe. Members of the Scottish BNP attend annual gatherings of nationalist and neo-fascist groups in Europe, usually held in the small Belgian town of Dixmude, and organised by a group known as Euroring. Euroring are associated with an extreme right-wing Flemish organisation, the VMO.
What it basically is, there's nothing sinister about it. The Euroring rally is basically a place, namely in Dixmude and has been in other places, where racial nationalists from different parts of Europe can go and they can change ideas, have a few beers, make some friends, because we see a lot of similarities between similar groups within Europe and within themselves. And the time of the Flemish Folk Festival is a time that a lot of them choose to get together.
Our members as individuals are perfectly free, as far as I'm concerned, to go and visit and make friends with people of like mind overseas. I don't try and stop them, and I have friends overseas. But there are no links at official level.
Another group from Scotland who attend the sometimes violent rallies in Belgium is the secretive League of St Andrew.
The League of St Andrew is an organisation of people who have been involved in British nationalist groups in the past. For instance, the National Front, the British Movement, the Ku Klux Klan. And basically it's made up of people who have jobs that they have to protect, and therefore they don't take part in open public activity. They prefer to work in the sidelines, if you like.
The rallies in Belgium expose an international infrastructure of extreme right-wing groups. In recent years, these overseas connections have brought Scotland perhaps the most notorious of all racialist groups, the Ku Klux Klan.
The Edinburgh Clavern was the first one formed in Scotland.
And when was that?
3.5 years ago.
There's active Clavern units in Edinburgh. There's one in Musselburgh. There's two in Paisley. There's quite a few in Glasgow, Dundee and Aberdeen. Major big cities have all got Claverns.
Yeah, we're all working class background. Variety jobs ranging from anything from, see, postmen, electricians, milkmen, joiners, anything, any everyday normal jobs.
Is the Ku Klux Klan growing in Scotland?
As far as I know, I get members near enough every week. There's members want to join.
The Klan admit to informal links with other right-wing groups, the foremost of which is the British National Party.
I sympathise with, most of them. Maybe get the papers and, off them. More sympathy, sympathise with any party who's got the same aims as us, which is for a white Britain, obviously.
What normally happens with other groups is we get some of the literature to read, but we don't go around trying to poach members of the other groups who try to do work for the same sort of thing. We like to keep people with us who are willing to join the Klan and stay with it, not for so long and just jump away to another group. And it wouldn't be very fair on other organisations if we just sort of spoke to their members and try to pull them with us. So we try and work on the same basis to help each other out if we can.
You've got all these groups like Asian Action and all the rest of them, as in they're looking after them. But like to me, it seems no one's looking after the whites, Our conditions are going down and no one cares. As in, I'm pro-white, I want to look after whites. Protect, the way of life we've got. It seems to be disappearing, I don't want to have other people's cultures, I want to keep a white culture.
The Ku Klux Klan, the League of St Andrew, European neo-Nazis, the British National Party. These small and disparate groups on the extreme right have one common connection: a hatred of the Jewish people.
We hope to convince the British people that the Holocaust is a lie, and that this lie of the Holocaust has generated enormous race hate for the German people and for any right-wing nationalists like ourselves. The Holocaust has definitely been overthrown by the works of the revisionist historians. There is absolutely no doubt about it.
Remove the Jew, you remove the problem. Pure, unadulterated Nazism. Pure and unadulterated. They are Nazis, and in private, John Tyndall has admitted as much to me. They are a danger. They're a danger to those whom they affect. And that's any black man, any black woman, walking down the street alone, late at night. Eventually, it will be any Jew. And eventually, if we don't stop them, it will be anyone who doesn't agree with them.
But the groups on the extreme right in Britain are still small. So are we in danger of over-dramatising them, of making them appear more threatening than they are?
I think there's a great danger in blowing the BNP up out of all proportion and giving to it a significance that it does not have in the Scottish political or social agenda. I don't believe the BNP is capable of setting the agenda either politically or socially. And although I've said I think the Scots are far too complacent upon the question of racism in Scottish society, if you look at Scottish society, we're essentially an egalitarian people and essentially a decent people. And I don't believe that the BNP could stir that egalitarian and decent people into violence against our fellow citizens.
The kinds of ideas that they are able to express and articulate through their propaganda do have a resonance on a broader basis. They seek to have that resonance. And insofar as that leads to violence against people, then that is a real threat in contemporary Scotland that we should take very seriously in the present circumstances.
One of the few people to have made a study of the impact of the extreme right in Scotland is Dr. Robert Miles, who lectures at Glasgow University.
Make no mistake, they are seeking to articulate views which are far wider, far more widely held than any electoral support given to an organisation like the BNP or previously the National Front would actually initially suggest.
That reservoir of prejudice within society can suddenly erupt given the right conditions. Across the Channel in the 80s, France was convulsed by a surge of support for their Front National. One of the most striking aspects of its success was its appeal in what had been previously hard-line left-wing areas. Closer to home, we have only to look back to the 70s and the heyday in Britain of the National Front to see how an insignificant group can grow rapidly into a mass movement and influence mainstream politics.
Yes, it had a very significant effect with regard to the Conservative Party. And there's therefore no surprise that the kind of electoral support that the National Front had been able to gain during the 1970s slid away to the Conservative Party. And since 1979, the National Front has not been a significant electoral force in British politics anywhere in Britain at all.
Now, we may be witnessing the BNP taking up where the National Front left off. They are recruiting many ex-National Front members. Scotland may be experiencing on a small scale the bigger Europe-wide growth in the far right. The BNP certainly take comfort from the recent events on the continent, which have revealed underground neo-Nazi groups, even in what was formerly communist Europe.
We see a tremendous convulsion coming all over Europe and including Britain. And when that convulsion occurs, people who have listened to us for years realize perhaps that we are right, but also thought that perhaps we cannot win power, will then come to us in great numbers.
What they are propagating, they and their international colleagues, is essentially an evil philosophy and ideology, and therefore must be contested. And if they tell us there's now some sort of international network of right-wing fascists like them, then of course there is cause for concern. And of course at every opportunity on our own doorstep, whether it's the Scottish doorstep, the French doorstep, the United States doorstep, or the German doorstep, it's incumbent on every democratic politician to go out and contest the evil they're propagating.